When we think of British weather, we often picture gentle rain, persistent drizzle, or perhaps a fleetingly sunny day perfect for a cup of tea in the garden. It's famous for being changeable, a topic of daily conversation and mild complaint. Yet beneath this veneer of gentle unpredictability lies a power that can be truly ferocious and devastating. Throughout history, the British Isles have been at the mercy of extreme weather events that have reshaped landscapes, destroyed communities, and fundamentally altered how the nation prepares for the future. These disasters serve as stark, dramatic reminders that the weather is not just a backdrop to our lives, but a force capable of immense destruction. These events are not dusty relics of a forgotten past. They live on in the memories of those who survived them and in the infrastructure built to prevent their recurrence. They are dramatic chapters in our national story, moments when ordinary life was suspended and replaced by a struggle for survival against the elements. From the North Sea swallowing entire coastal towns to hurricane-force winds tearing through the heart of the country, these moments of crisis reveal both the vulnerability of our modern world and the incredible resilience of the human spirit. Understanding these disasters is key to understanding the Britain we live in today. This essay will explore 5 of the most significant weather disasters in modern UK history. We will delve into what really happened during these terrifying events, examining the unique meteorological conditions that unleashed their fury. We will look at the Great Flood of 1953, the Big Freeze of 1962-63, the Great Storm of 1987, the Summer Floods of 2007, and the Beast from the East in 2018. Each story is a testament to nature's power and a lesson in how societies adapt when faced with the unimaginable, turning tragedy into a catalyst for change and greater preparedness. Join me as we journey back in time to witness the terrifying force of these weather phenomena. We'll see how icy water claimed homes in the dead of night, how an entire winter brought the country to a standstill, and how a storm that was famously underestimated changed weather forecasting forever. These are not just stories about wind and rain, they are stories about people, about loss, and about the enduring quest to protect ourselves from the very worst that nature can throw at us. They are a crucial part of our shared history, written by the wind, the water, and the ice. On the last night of January 1953, a perfect storm of conditions brewed in the North Sea. A deep depression combined with a high spring tide and gale-force winds to create a monstrous storm surge. This wall of water, several meters high, slammed into the low-lying east coast of England, a region protected by sea defenses that were old and woefully inadequate. In the darkness, the sea simply rose and poured over the walls. Entire communities in places like Canvey Island and Mablethorpe were engulfed by the icy, churning water in a matter of minutes. Houses were torn from their foundations, and the landscape was transformed into a terrifying dark sea. The human cost was staggering. Over 300 people in the UK lost their lives, many trapped in their homes as the floodwaters rose without warning. The response was a desperate scramble in the dark, with volunteers and emergency workers taking to small boats to rescue survivors from rooftops and the upper floors of their submerged houses. The scale of the devastation was almost impossible to comprehend. 160,000 acres of farmland were contaminated with salt water and thousands of homes were destroyed or rendered uninhabitable. It was the worst natural disaster to strike Britain in the 20th century, a brutal lesson in the vulnerability of the nation's coastline. Decades later, a different kind of meteorological fury struck. On the night of the 15th of October 1987, the southeast of England was battered by what became known as the Great Storm. This wasn't a hurricane in the tropical sense, but an extratropical cyclone that deepened explosively over the Bay of Biscay, a phenomenon now known as a weather bomb. Infamously, just hours before it hit, a BBC weather forecaster had reassured the public that there was no hurricane on the way. But as people slept, winds gusting over 100 miles per hour ripped through the country, creating a sound that many would never forget. The aftermath was a scene of pure chaos. The storm felled an estimated 15 million trees, blocking roads, cutting power lines, and devastating ancient woodlands like those at Kew Gardens in the New Forest. The transport network ground to a halt, and millions were left without electricity for days. 18 people tragically lost their lives. The Great Storm of 1987 became a watershed moment not just for its destructive power, but for the questions it raised. The failure to accurately forecast its severity sent shockwaves through the meteorological community, sparking a revolution in forecasting technology, satellite monitoring, and computer modeling to ensure the country would never be caught so unprepared again. The winter of 1962-63 remains etched in the national memory as the Big Freeze. It wasn't a single storm, but a relentless 10-week siege of extreme cold. It began just after Christmas 1962, when a vast, stubborn high-pressure system settled over Scandinavia, funneling brutally cold air directly from Siberia across the British Isles. For weeks on end, temperatures refused to climb above freezing, even during the day. The country was plunged into a deep, icy paralysis, with snow falling on already frozen ground, creating immense drifts that buried roads and isolated entire villages for weeks at a time. The landscape transformed into something from an Arctic expedition. Rivers, lakes, and even parts of the sea around the coast froze solid. The River Thames froze over in places for the first time in decades, and people could be seen walking on its icy surface. For ordinary people, life became a daily struggle. Food and fuel supplies dwindled as transport routes were cut off. Coal, the lifeblood of home heating at the time, was in desperately short supply. The Big Freeze wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a long, grinding battle against a hostile environment that tested the nation's infrastructure and its people's endurance to the absolute limit. 55 years later, in February 2018, a chilling echo of that Siberian chill returned in the form of the beast from the east. A sudden stratospheric warming event high above the Arctic had disrupted the polar vortex, allowing a blast of intensely cold air to sweep across Europe and hit the UK. The Met Office issued rare red weather warnings, meaning a risk to life, as temperatures plummeted and gale-force easterly winds created a life-threatening wind chill. It felt colder than the Arctic in parts of Scotland and England, a brutal shock to the system for modern Britain. The situation was made even worse by the arrival of Storm Emma from the Atlantic, which clashed with the cold air to create a perfect storm of blizzard conditions. The impact was immediate and severe. Hundreds of motorists were trapped in their cars overnight on motorways like the M62, which became buried in snow. Airports, train lines, and schools across the country shut down, bringing daily life to a standstill. The beast from the east was a powerful reminder that, despite all our modern technology and infrastructure, society remains incredibly fragile in the face of extreme winter weather, highlighting vulnerabilities in our transport and supply chains. The summer of 2007 should have been a time of sunshine and outdoor festivals, but it turned into a season of unprecedented flooding. May, June, and July were the wettest on record, saturating the ground completely. In June, a first wave of intense thunderstorms caused flash floods that devastated cities like Sheffield, where the River Don burst its banks. But the worst was yet to come. In late July, another wave of torrential rain fell on the already sodden landscape of the Midlands and the West Country, leading to catastrophic river flooding on a scale not seen in generations. It was a disaster that unfolded in slow motion, but with devastating consequences. Entire towns, most famously Tewkesbury and Gloucestershire, were turned into islands, completely cut off by the floodwaters. The M5 motorway was closed, thousands of people were evacuated from their homes, and a national emergency was declared. The crisis deepened when the Myth Water Treatment Works near Tewkesbury was flooded, leaving 350,000 people without running water for over 2 weeks. The 2007 floods exposed critical weaknesses in the country's flood defenses and emergency planning, showing how one failure in critical infrastructure could trigger a cascade of problems and widespread public health issues. Each of these terrible events, from the 1953 flood to the 2018 freeze, left an indelible mark on the nation. They were not just isolated tragedies but powerful catalysts for change. The devastating North Sea flood led directly to the creation of the Storm Tide Warning Service, and eventually, the construction of the colossal Thames Barrier, a marvel of engineering designed to protect London from a similar fate. The forecasting failures of the Great Storm in 1987 triggered massive investment in the Met Office, leading to the advanced, highly accurate warning systems we rely on today, which undoubtedly saved lives. Similarly, the 2007 summer floods prompted the exhaustive Pitt Review, which resulted in over 90 recommendations that fundamentally reshaped how the UK manages flood risk, from national strategy down to local community resilience. These disasters, as horrific as they were, forced the country to learn, adapt, and invest. They drove innovation in science, engineering, and policy, pushing us to build stronger defenses, create smarter warning systems, and foster a greater public awareness of the risks we face. They're a stark reminder that our relationship with the weather is a continuous process of learning and preparation. The story of Britain's worst weather disasters is ultimately one of resilience. It shows how, in the face of overwhelming natural force, communities come together and the nation as a whole finds the will to rebuild and prepare for the future. From the volunteer rescuers of 1953 to the motorists helping each other on a frozen motorway in 2018, these events reveal the best of the human spirit. They remind us that while we can never tame the weather, we can learn from its fury to build a safer, more resilient society, forever shaped by the lessons written in the wind and the rain.